Welcome to another edition of RCE. I'm your host, Brock Palin, and I have, again, Jeff Squires from Cisco Systems and the OpenMPI project. Jeff, thanks for some time again.
Oh, not a problem. Sounds like we got something interesting to talk about today.
Yes, we have two people from Kitware who work on VTK, the Visualization Toolkit, and I'll let them explain what that is. So let me go ahead and introduce them. First, we have Will Schroeder, and we have Geveci, and again, they're both from VTK. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi.
So, can you guys introduce yourself a little bit and give us a little rundown on Kitware?
Sure. This is Will Schroeder talking. I'm one of the 5 co-founders of Kitware. I'm currently president and CEO. We're a very technical company. So I actually still write a little bit of code now and then. And as far as VTK and where it came from, is that the question that we're on right now?
Sure, yeah. We'd like to know what that is.
Right. So VTK, many years ago, I was actually working on in a visualization group at GE Corporate Research, and we decided that our tools at that time were obsolete. So we decided to do something different, and we wanted to open source what we did. We wrote a textbook. We wrote some code to go along with it, and that was in 1993, the beginnings of that. And then around 1998, the community of VTK had grown to the point where we realized we could support the software and make a living doing it, and that's what we did.
Okay, so Will, thanks for that. Bert, can we get a little bit of your history?
Yeah, this is Geveci, and I'm the director of scientific computing at Kitware. I've been here, for 9 years. My main role at Kitware has been VTK development, and also I'm the lead of the ParaView team here. So I work mostly on the HPC side of things.
Okay, so VTK is, you said that it's open source and that it originally came from GE, and then you set up Kitware to support it. Is VTK Kitware's only product?
Let me back up a little. Actually, VTK was owned by the 3 people that wrote it, myself, Ken Martin, and Bill Lorenzen. It was never owned or sponsored by GE. Just happened that we were working at GE at the time, and we had permission and clear legal ownership of the software that we wrote on our own time. And then, we got to the point where we wanted to do something outside of the GE Research Center. And as far as Kitware and its products, we started with VTK, but we now have a whole host of open source products, including CMake, which you may have heard of. And many open source tools and non-open source tools use CMake now. For example, KDE has adopted it. We have a system called the Insight Toolkit, which is a medical image processing system. We have ParaView that Bert mentioned, which is a supercomputing application. And let's see what else is worth mentioning. We have an image-guided surgery toolkit. We call it IGSTK. So there's a whole host we've developed over the last 11 years.
Okay, so VTK, though, is still the cornerstone offering from Kitware?
I would say it's not the cornerstone because we rounded out the company to not only do visualization, but medical imaging, computer vision, data hosting and publishing, as well as software process. So if you showed people our suite of tools, they would probably recognize CMake before anything else, which is a software process. It's a software build tool. And then they would probably recognize VTK. So we're trying to develop a wide palette of tools that we can use to address scientific computing needs.
Okay, so we're here to actually talk about VTK. So we got that VTK is what you started with. Can you explain in your own words what is VTK and what is its target?
The goal behind VTK basically is to take data of any sort, process it, and then produce something that communicates what the data is about to an end user. And so when we started off, it was more about scientific visualization. So you would take, a simulation data set or an MRI scan or something along those lines, something that you would recognize if you looked at a picture of it. And we've since gone to the point of doing informatics or information visualization, where you take more random sort of abstract data like marketing demographics or a text document, and you try and visualize that. So the whole idea behind visualization is to take data and put it in a form that people can apprehend and perceive rapidly.
So is VTK an end-user application?
VTK is a toolkit. It's basically a lot of little components that do things like ingest data, process data, convert data to a graphics layer, and then render the data, and also provide interaction with it. So there's complicated 3D interaction widgets. And also there's querying and analysis modules. But there's a lot of little classes that float around that we put together in our applications like ParaView to make VTK usable by the sort of end user.
Okay, so would a regular person stumbling across VTK, it would look more like a library, something they would use with something else they wrote or someone else's tool, then they wouldn't just invoke VTK?
Generally not, although we have wrappers, so we wrap into like Python or Tickle.
Right.
And so you can actually run a little shell, load up VTK, and then start writing little scripts that do various things.
Yeah, so if you actually had VTK, there is an executable in there that's called VTK. And that, if you run that, that will bring up an interpreter with which you can type. You can start typing commands to create a visualization program.
Right, but you're right. I mean, basically, VTK is embedded in other applications.
What language bindings do you have available? So you mentioned, I think, Tickle already, and what were the other ones?
Python, Tickle, and Java.
Yeah, and other people have experimented with other bindings. For Ruby, for example, there's if you search out there, there are Ruby bindings for VTK. And I even heard of people experimenting with Lisp.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, what language is VTK itself written in then?
C++.
So is there a C++ binding as well?
Well, yeah, the toolkit at its core is all C++ classes. And then we built into VTK, there's this whole wrap, we call it a wrapping technology, which basically performs a certain amount of introspection on the C++ class library, and then develops the appropriate wrapping layer into the various targeted languages like Python.
Yeah, very similar to Swig.
Swig is your friend, yes. So I would assume, this may be a silly question, but I assume that you use CMake to build the whole thing.
Of course.
Of course, yes. It had to be asked, of course.
I was going to say CMake was actually originally developed to build ITK, but VTK was the second library that really started using CMake. This was 9 years ago or so.
Yeah, 1999.
So what is the target scenario that you're trying to address with VTK? And pretend I'm an application developer. Am I writing an HPC application that's perhaps parallel and running on multiple nodes? Am I using VTK in that application, or is it more commonly used in, say, a post-processing scenario where I've run a job, I have my terabytes of data or whatever, and I use VTK to look at the data after the fact? I mean, I guess I'm asking, how do people tend to use this? So
the most common use case is as a post-processing tool. But in a lot of cases, you can still use it, distribute it on a cluster, because one of our main focus in the last 10 years or so have been to scale the visualization tools with the simulation tools, because people run into a situation where their simulation results got so large that they could no longer visualize them on a single workstation, even though it may have multiple processors. So we have been building support for distributed computing into VTK. So yes, despite the fact that you may be doing post-processing, you would be doing it distributed if the data was large enough to require that.